The Forgotten Cry. The colony of Dayara lay on the edge of known space, a small world of green valleys and silver rivers. Its people were not warriors. They were farmers, miners, and families who had settled far from the power of the Galactic Council. For years they had lived in peace, sending shipments of ore and food to the trade lanes unnoticed by most of the galaxy. But peace never lasted long in the void. The first attack came at night. Raider ships slipped through orbit, their engines dark, their weapons burning as they struck. Settlements were bombed, fields were set ablaze, and hundreds of colonists were dragged into cages to be sold as slaves. The survivors fled into the forests, terrified, watching their homes burn beneath the cold stars. Governor Terra, leader of the colony, activated the emergency beacon. The signal pulsed into the void, a cry for help. "Attention, Galactic Council. This is Dayara. We are under attack. Civilians dying. Requesting immediate protection, please. We beg you." The message repeated again and again, carried by satellites bouncing from relay to relay. The people huddled together in underground shelters, listening for an answer. Any answer. But none came. Days passed. The beacon kept screaming into the void, its voice steady even as the colony weakened. Raiders returned again and again, stripping the colony bare. The Council's patrols never arrived. Not one ally answered. Governor Terra sent a second message, her voice cracking as she spoke. "This is Dayara. Our people are dying. You promised protection when we joined your council. Where are you? Please do not abandon us." Still silence. On the council's homeworld, the distress call was received, logged, and dismissed. Dayara was a minor colony, far from the core. The fleet was stretched thin. Resources were too valuable to waste on a world with no military strength. The file was marked non-priority. The colony was forsaken. Inside the shelters, fear grew into despair. Families whispered of leaving, of taking old freighters and fleeing into the unknown. But the raiders controlled the skies. No ship could leave without being hunted down. One young colonist, Lyra, sat by the radio every night listening to the static. Her little brother clutched her arm and whispered, "Will someone come?" She forced a smile she did not feel. Of course, someone will hear us. But in her heart she knew the truth. The galaxy had turned away. And then one night the static changed. It was faint at first, buried under noise. A crackle, a distortion, like a whisper in the dark. Lyra's eyes widened. She pressed her headphones closer, twisting the dials, trying to sharpen the signal. Dayara Colony. "This is... Repeat, this is..." The voice broke through for a second, strong and clear. A voice she had never heard before. Rough, human. Lyra's breath caught. "Governor, someone's answering." Terra rushed to the console, her eyes wide. "Patch it through. Now." The signal hissed, then steadied. Across every working radio in the colony, the voice spoke. "This is Captain Elias Varr of the Terran vessel Resolute. We received your distress call." Gasps filled the shelter. People stared at each other in disbelief. "Human?" someone whispered. The voice continued, calm but firm. "Your signal was ignored by the Council, but we are not the Council. We heard you, and we are coming." Terra leaned close to the microphone, her hands shaking. "This is Governor Terra of Dayara. Please, are you truly coming? We have nothing left. The raiders will return. We cannot hold out." There was a pause, and then the human answered, "Hold on. You are not alone anymore. With you, always." The words spread like fire through the shelters. For the first time in weeks, hope returned. People wept, clinging to one another. Children laughed again, their fear momentarily forgotten. But the raiders were still out there, and the Council still did not care. Only one human ship had answered. Governor Terra looked at the trembling faces of her people and whispered almost to herself, "One ship against an army. Can it really save us?" Above them, in the endless, dark, the faint light of the Resolute flickered into view. Scarred, old, but real. and it was coming straight for Dayara, the arrival of silence. The sky above Dayara was still scarred from the last raid. Ash clouds drifted where farms once grew. The people huddled in shelters, afraid to step outside, waiting for the next strike. But that night, something different appeared in orbit. Not the raiders, not the council, a single ship, the Terran vessel. Resolute broke through the atmosphere with a deep rumble that shook the valley. Its hull was old, patched with steel and carbon plates, but it carried the weight of something more than metal. Its engines burned steady, and its shadow stretched across the colony like a shield. The people poured from their hiding places, staring at the sky. For weeks they had seen only fire and smoke. Now they saw a ship that did not belong to raiders. A ship that came not to destroy, but to stand. Governor Terra's voice trembled as she spoke to her people. It is them, the humans. The ship descended slowly, landing on the cracked stone plain outside the ruined capital. The ground shook as its massive landing struts touched down. Dust rose in waves. Silence followed. For a moment, no one moved. The colony held its breath. Then the ramp lowered. Figures stepped out, humans in worn armor, their faces hard and steady. They were not many, barely a company of soldiers, but they walked with purpose. Their boots struck the ground like thunder. Each carried weapons scarred from battles long past. At their front was Captain Elias Var. His hair was streaked with gray, his uniform patched but clean. His eyes swept across the frightened aliens gathered before him. He saw their hunger, their fear, their hopelessness. He lifted his voice. People of Dayara, you called for help. The galaxy turned away. We did not. The words cut through the silence. The colonists wept openly. Children clung to their parents, staring at the strange humans who had come for them when no one else had. Governor Terra stepped forward, her robes torn and stained with ash. Her voice cracked as she spoke. Why? Why would you come? Even the council has abandoned us. We are nothing to them. Captain Var met her eyes. His voice was calm, steady, heavy with truth. Because no one deserves to die alone. Not while humanity still breathes. The words struck deeper than any weapon. The colonists bowed their heads, hope stirring where none had been. The human soldiers began unloading crates from the ship, supplies, medicine, weapons. They moved quickly, practiced, efficient. To the colonists, it felt like a miracle. To the humans, it was duty. Inside the shelter, Lyra and her younger brother watched in awe. The boy tugged her sleeve and whispered, "They came. They really came." Lyra smiled, though her eyes filled with tears. Yes, and they will fight for us. But hope was fragile. The sound of engines broke the silence again. This time, not from the Resolute. The raiders had returned. Dark ships cut through the clouds, their weapons glowing. Sirens wailed as the colonists screamed, running for cover. The ground shook as explosions lit the horizon. Governor Terra gasped. Not again. We cannot survive another raid. Captain Var's eyes narrowed. His soldiers moved at once, forming lines, weapons ready. They did not retreat. They did not panic. One soldier muttered, "Guess the welcoming party's early." Var raised his rifle. "Then we greet them properly." The colonists watched in disbelief. Every other ally had fled at the first sign of raiders. But the humans stood firm, calm as stone, ready to meet the storm. The first raider ship roared overhead, unleashing a barrage on the plain. Dirt and fire exploded around the humans. But when the smoke cleared, they were still there, unbroken, weapons raised. Captain Var turned his head slightly, speaking into his comm. "Resolute, give them something to remember." Above, the human vessel stirred. Its cannons fired once, just once. The shot streaked across the sky, tearing through the raider ship in a blaze of fire. The wreck fell in pieces, burning across the valley. The colonists gasped. For the first time, they saw a raider ship fall. The humans did not cheer. They simply held their line, ready for the next wave. Governor Tara whispered, almost to herself, They fight for us, even when no one else would. And in that moment, every colonist understood. Humanity's promise was not just words. It was action. The boy beside Lyra whispered again, eyes wide with hope. With us always. The humans waited, calm and silent, as the rest of the raider fleet approached. The first true battle for Dayara was about to begin. The promise. The raider ships circled above the colony like hungry predators. Their engines roared, and their weapons glowed with fire. The people of Dayara crouched in fear, clutching one another, convinced this would be their end. But this time, something was different. The humans stood on the plain, calm and steady, their armor darkened with old scars, their weapons humming with quiet power. They did not run. They did not tremble. They faced the sky as if daring the raiders to descend. Captain Elias Var lowered his rifle only long enough to speak to Governor Tara, who stood behind him, her robes trembling in the wind. "Governor," he said, his voice like iron, "this is your world. But if you allow it, we will fight for it, no matter the cost." Tara's throat tightened. She had begged the council for weeks, her voice ignored, her people left to die. And now here stood humanity. A single ship, a single company offering everything for strangers. "Why?" she asked again, tears in her eyes. "Why would you give your lives for us?" Captain Var met her gaze, his expression hard but steady. "Because no one stood for us once, and we swore that no one would ever be left alone again, not while humans still draw breath." The word struck deep into her heart. Her people had been forsaken, but humanity had not only come, they had promised. Tara bowed her head, her voice breaking. "Then fight. And know this, Dayara will never forget." The raiders chose that moment to strike. Their ships dived, firing streams of plasma that tore across the plain. Explosions shook the ground, fire lit the sky. Colonists screamed, scattering for cover, but the humans moved as one. "Form line," Captain Var shouted. His soldiers dropped into formation, shields locking, weapons raised. Plasma blasts struck their line, sparks flying, but they did not break. They returned fire, each shot precise, tearing through the raiders that came too close. The colonists peeked from the ruins, their eyes wide. For the first time they saw resistance. They saw defenders who did not crumble under fire. One child whispered, "They're not afraid." Above, the Resolute roared to life, its cannons spitting fire. Another raider ship burst apart, raining debris across the mountainside. The ground shook, but cheers rose from the shelters. The humans pressed forward. With every step they pushed back against the storm. Their movements were not reckless, but steady, deliberate. Each soldier covered the other. Each one fought not for themselves but for the people behind them. A raider transport tried to land near the capital, its claws unfolding to unload troops. Captain Var raised his rifle, sighted, and fired. His shot pierced the cockpit and the ship exploded before it ever touched the ground. The colonists erupted in cheers. Governor Tara stared in awe. "They fight like they've been waiting for this." The young colonist Lyra stood beside her. Her eyes were bright with tears. Not waiting, promising. The battle raged for hours. The humans bled, their armor scorched, their weapons hot in their hands. But they did not retreat. When one fell, another stepped forward. When the line shook, Captain Var's voice steadied. It again. At last the raiders pulled back, their ships retreating into the night sky. They had expected an easy slaughter. Instead, they had been beaten by one ship and a handful of humans. Silence settled over the valley. Smoke rose from the ruins. The colonists emerged slowly, staring at the field where humans stood battered, but unbroken. Governor Tara stepped forward. She looked at the soldiers, their armor dented, their faces streaked with sweat and blood. And she spoke so all could hear. You came when no one else would. You bled for us when the galaxy turned away. Why should we ever trust another council, when humanity has already proven more than all of them? Captain Var lowered his weapon. His voice was quiet, but it carried across the plain. Because when we say, with you, always, we mean it. The people of Dayara wept, not in despair, but in hope. For the first time they believed they might live to see another dawn. But above them, the raider fleet was not gone. From orbit, their reinforcements gathered. More ships, more firepower. They had underestimated the humans once. They would not make that mistake again. On the flagship, raider commanders growled in fury. Send everything. We will crush them in one blow. The colony would face another storm, and this time, it would be greater than before. The siege begins. The night sky above Dayara glowed red as the raider fleet returned. Their ships swarmed like vultures, dozens of engines blazing against the stars. The sound of their weapons rumbled through the atmosphere, echoing like thunder. In the shelters, the colonists clutched one another, hearts pounding. They had seen the humans fight once, had seen them win against impossible odds. But now, the enemy was coming back with more. Too many. Governor Tara stood at the shelter entrance, staring at the horizon where fire streaked across the sky. Her voice shook as she whispered, "How can they fight all of that?" Captain Elias Var stood beside her, calm as stone. His armor was dented from the last battle, his rifle scorched, yet his eyes never wavered. "They brought everything they have," he said quietly. "Good. Then we won't have to hunt them later." The words rippled through the colonists. A few even smiled weakly. Somehow, when he spoke, fear seemed smaller. The humans spread out across the plain, digging trenches, setting up makeshift barricades from wreckage and broken stone. Their movements were quick, practiced. This wasn't the first time they had been outnumbered. Sergeant Cora, a tall woman with scars across her face, barked orders. "Ammo on the front line! Medkits behind! If you're breathing, you're fighting!" The colonists watched as the humans prepared. They weren't just soldiers, they were guardians, and every motion said the same thing: "We will not leave you." Above, the Resolute drifted into position. Its cannons hummed with power, its old hull glowing faintly against the darkness. The first wave hit. Dozens of raider ships screamed down from orbit, firing plasma into the colony. Explosions shook the ground, lighting the night like a storm. The air was filled with dust, fire, and the screams of engines. But the humans did not break. Their rifles blazed, streaks of light cutting across the sky. Raiders dropped from the air, their transports burning before they ever touched the ground. The trenches lit with fire, but the humans held their lines. Captain Var moved among his soldiers, shouting over the roar. "Hold steady. Remember what we fight for." A raider transport broke through, landing just outside the capital. Its doors opened, pouring warriors into the streets. The colonists screamed. But before the raiders could charge, the humans were already there. Sergeant Cora and her squad rushed forward, blades and rifles in hand. The fight was brutal, hand to hand in the burning streets. Cora's blade cut through armor, her rifle thundered, and soon the ground was littered with raider bodies. The colonists peeked from their hiding places, stunned. They had never seen warriors fight like this, every strike, every step filled with fury and purpose. Above, the Resolute unleashed its cannons. 1, 2, 3 shots. Each one tore a raider ship from the sky. The wrecks burned as they fell, shaking, the mountains with their crashes. But still more came. The second wave descended, bigger ships, heavier guns. Plasma rained down like fire from the heavens. The ground split, trenches collapsed, barricades burned. The humans fought on, but even they felt the weight of endless numbers. Lyra, the young colonist girl, clutched her brother's hand as she watched from the shelter. Her voice was a whisper. "They're outnumbered. They can't hold forever." Her brother looked up at her, eyes wide. But they promised. The battle raged into the night. The humans fought until their armor was cracked, until their rifles were hot to the touch. Still, They did not break. Still, they stood between the raiders and the colonists. One soldier fell, but another stepped forward to fill the gap. Blood stained the ground, but the line held. At last, Captain Var raised his comm, his voice cutting through the chaos. "All units, broadcast wide. Let them hear us." The humans' radios lit up, transmitting across every channel. The raiders heard it, the colonists heard it. Even the council's relays caught fragments. The message was simple. "With you. Always." The words echoed across the battlefield, louder than the fire, stronger than the fear. The colonists lifted their heads, hope rising in their hearts. The raiders hesitated, shaken by the unbreakable resolve. But the fight was not over. Above the clouds, the largest raider ships began to descend, massive carriers, bristling with cannons, enough firepower to burn the colony to ash in one strike. "Governor," Tara's face paled. This is the end." Captain Var lifted his rifle, his eyes locked on the sky. His voice was steady, unbroken. "No, this is the beginning." The third wave was coming. The true siege was only starting. Fire in the stars. The night sky above Dayara split open as the raider carriers descended. Their hulls glowed red, bristling with cannons, each large enough to destroy a city in one strike. The ground shook as their engines thundered, blotting out the stars. The colonists stared upward in horror. They had seen raids before, but never this. This was not plunder. This was extermination. Governor Tara whispered, her voice shaking. "They will burn us to ash." But beside her, Captain Elias Var raised his rifle, his face calm despite the fire above. "Not while we breathe," he said. His words spread through the comms, carried to every human soldier. The line steadied. Fear was replaced with resolve. The first volley came. The raider carriers unleashed beams of plasma that cut across the plain, ripping trenches apart, shattering stone, throwing humans and colonists into the air. Dust and flame filled the night. But when the smoke cleared, the humans still stood, battered, bleeding, but unbroken. "Return fire," Var shouted. The Resolute answered. Its cannons roared, striking the first carrier. Fire ripped across its hull, splitting it open in a chain of explosions. The wreck fell into the mountains, lighting the horizon with burning debris. Cheers erupted, from the colonists hiding in shelters. For the first time, they believed the impossible. The raiders could bleed. But more carriers descended. Their guns thundered, their troops poured from the skies. Hundreds of raider warriors stormed the plain, their blades and rifles flashing. The humans met them head-on. The turning point. The ground shook as the largest raider carrier descended. Its shadow stretched across the valley, swallowing the ruins of the colony. Its cannons glowed like suns, each one powerful enough to erase a city in a single blast. The colonists in their shelters trembled, whispering prayers. They had seen the humans fight with fire and fury, but this was too much. Governor Tara's voice cracked as she clutched the comm. "Captain Var, you can't stop this. No one can." On the plain below, Captain Elias Var stood with his soldiers. Their armor was scorched, their rifles low on charge, their bodies bleeding from endless battle. Yet his eyes never wavered. He looked at the massive carrier and spoke calmly. "Then we die standing." The words carried through the comms, reaching every colonist hiding underground. And in that moment, something stirred in their hearts. Lyra, the young colonist girl, looked at her brother. His small hands shook as he whispered, "They're fighting for us, even if it kills them." Her jaw tightened. She stood, pulling him with her. "Then we will fight too." Others heard her voice. Men, women, elders, all who had been hiding in fear, slowly rose. They had no armor, no training, but they had seen enough. The humans had come when no one else would. Now it was their turn to stand. Governor Tara's eyes widened as colonists rushed past her, carrying whatever they could find: old hunting rifles, tools, Even farming equipment turned into weapons. Their faces were pale, but their eyes burned with resolve. She whispered, "By the stars." They're joining them. On the battlefield, the humans saw movement in the ruins. Dozens, then hundreds of colonists emerged from hiding, shouting, carrying weapons. They ran to the trenches, standing shoulder to shoulder with the human line. Sergeant Cora laughed, her voice fierce even in exhaustion. "Look at that, Captain. The galaxy abandoned them, but they finally found their strength." Var gave a grim smile. "Then let's show them how to use it." The carrier above unleashed its first barrage. Plasma fire rained down, shaking the plane. But now, the humans were not alone. The colonists spread out, dragging wreckage into barriers, using terrain to block the blasts. Farmers who had once tilled soil now reloaded rifles. Miners who had dug into stone now carried explosives. Together they fought. A group of colonists ambushed raider troops landing in the capital streets. Their shots were clumsy, their aim shaky, but the humans covered them, guiding their fire. Together, they forced the raiders back. In the trenches, Lyra herself fired her first shot, her hands shaking. The bolt struck a raider's armor. It didn't kill him, but it slowed him long enough for a human soldier to finish the job. She gasped, her brother clutching her hand. But then she steadied. She had become part of the fight. Governor Teyra took to the comms, her voice strong for the first time in weeks. "People of Dayara, stand. The humans bleed for us. Now we bleed for each other." Cheers echoed across the battlefield. The raiders roared, throwing everything they had. Waves of warriors poured from the carrier. Cannons lit the sky. But for every step forward, the defenders pushed them back. Humanity's discipline met Dayara's desperation, and together they became something new. On the Resolute, the crew unleashed every last shell, every missile, every ounce of firepower. The old ship shook, its engines screaming, but its cannons tore through raider escorts, clearing the skies. At last, Captain Var raised his comm, his voice carrying across the chaos. "Now, everyone, all at once, push them back." The humans surged forward, their rifles blazing. The colonists charged beside them, shouting, their courage stronger than fear. Raiders fell under the combined assault, their lines breaking. Above, the massive carrier hesitated. Its commander snarled in rage. "They are peasants, farmers. How can they resist us?" But the truth was clear. It wasn't peasants or soldiers anymore. It was unity. It was a promise kept. The colonists of Dayara and the soldiers of Earth fought as one. And for the first time, the raiders faltered. Smoke filled the night. Fire rained from the skies. But the defenders did not collapse. They rose higher, stronger, fiercer. Governor Teyra's voice echoed in every ear. "We are not forsaken. Humanity has shown us no one fights alone." The tide had turned. The raiders began to retreat, their ships pulling back under the relentless assault. But above, the carrier's cannons still glowed, preparing one final strike to annihilate the colony in a single blast. Captain Var looked at the massive ship, his jaw set. "This ends now." A new oath. The sky above Dayara burned like a furnace. The raider carrier, the largest ship the colonists had ever seen, hovered over the valley. Its cannons glowed brighter and brighter, gathering power for a single strike that would erase the colony, the humans, and every trace of resistance. The people of Dayara froze in fear. They had fought. They had risen. They had stood beside humanity, but against that power, they could not survive. Governor Teyra whispered, her voice trembling. "It will destroy us all." Captain Elias Var stood at the front line, his armor scorched, his rifle heavy in his hands. His soldiers bled beside him, exhausted, yet none had stepped back. He looked up at the massive carrier, his jaw set. "Not while we breathe," he said. The Resolute groaned in orbit, its old engines straining, its hull glowing from damage. The human ship had fired until its cannons were nearly drained, but it still moved, still aimed its guns at the giant above. "Captain," the ship's comm officer said, her voice faint with static. "We don't have enough power left for another full barrage." Var's eyes narrowed. "Then one shot will have to be enough." The colonists stared in silence as humans worked feverishly, rerouting every line of energy, every battery, every scrap of power into one final charge. Even the lights of the Resolute dimmed, its systems shutting down to feed its cannons. "Sergeant," Cora grinned through blood on her face. "One shot, one promise." The Raider carrier's cannons reached full charge, their glow brighter than the moon. The commander inside sneered. "End them." But before the strike could fall, the humans answered. The Resolute unleashed its last breath. A single beam, bright as a star, ripped across the heavens. It struck the carrier at its core. For a moment, silence. Then the giant split open, fire bursting through its hull, tearing it apart piece by piece. The explosion lit the night sky, turning darkness into day. The shockwave rolled across the valley, rattling mountains, shaking every shelter. The colonists gasped. The impossible had happened. The largest ship, the weapon meant to end them, was gone. The Raider fleet broke instantly, ships scattered in panic, engines roaring as they fled into the void. Warriors dropped their weapons and ran, their courage shattered. The Empire's predators had become prey, running from a single human ship and the people it had defended. Silence fell. Smoke drifted across the valley. The colonists looked around them, their faces pale, their hearts racing. They were alive. Against all odds, they had survived. Governor Tara walked forward, her steps unsteady, until she stood before Captain Var. She bowed her head deeply. "We begged the galaxy for help and no one came. You stood for us when all others turned away. Dayara is in your debt. Forever." Var shook his head. "No debt. We did what had to be done." But Tara raised her voice, so that every colonist, every human soldier could hear. "Then let it be known. The people of Dayara swear this. We will stand with humanity as you stood with us. From this day forward, never again will you fight alone." The colonists raised their voices in unison, shouting, cheering, their cries echoing across the ruins. For the first time in weeks, they were not broken, not forsaken. They were strong. The young colonist, Lyra, stood beside her brother, tears on her cheeks, her hands trembling. She looked up at the sky where the Resolute drifted, scarred but alive. "They came for us when no one else did," she whispered. "With us always." Her brother smiled, clutching her hand. "And now we're with them." Captain Var looked at his weary soldiers, at the colonists who now stood proudly beside them. He felt something stir in his chest, not just pride, but certainty. This was only the beginning. The galaxy had abandoned Dayara. The Council had chosen silence, but humanity had answered with fire, with blood, and with promise. And now, the story of what had happened would spread. Every forgotten colony, every forsaken world, every people who believed they were alone. They would hear the truth. When the galaxy turned its back, humanity stood. When all others abandoned, humanity promised, "With you, always."